You also need to have a nutritionist who understands how food and exercise kind of go together. And so if you are running 2 days a week for 45 minutes and you're walking 10,000 steps a day, your nutrition plan, specifically your macronutrient plan, should support all that work because it's a lot of work. And so you should have massive amounts of carbohydrates. They're a great energy source and they will help you change your body composition faster than you can imagine. There are 3 areas of your life that you have complete control over: your health, your professional development, and your personal development. And those 3 deeply affect each other. And the rest for you is, as you know, it's merely influence. But you're busy. We have a lot in common in that regard. I'm the CEO of a small service-based business in Southern California with 80 employees, and there's a lot going on. Marketing issues, people issues. You kind of know the drill. And that in and of itself can just push you into a deep chasm of health-related problems. Further, when I was in my 20s and 30s, and this is probably just like you as well, I absolutely buried myself. And although I went to the gym, it was sort of like, checking a box. I didn't really work out very hard. I just kind of went through the motions, maybe broke a small sweat. But I worked so hard, professionally speaking, that I had a cluster of grand mal seizures on a golf course in Austin, Texas. I was diagnosed with AFib shortly thereafter. I had high blood pressure. I was on a bunch of meds, and I was in constant joint-related pain, which I just sort of gradually became who I was, and I didn't really think much of it. And so I just kind of fought my way through it. I was basically playing tug of war with my body, kind of forcing it to do what I willed it to do. And now today, in contrast, I'm the healthiest I've ever been. And as a CEO, it's critical for your company, for your employees, for all stakeholders, including your family. That's why today I put a tremendous amount of prioritization on my health. So I'm going to teach you how, but in order to learn what I would call the skill of health, let me reframe that. I don't see health any longer as a goal, but a skill. And it's something that I'm constantly learning and honing, just like learning a foreign language, or frankly, English is a complex language, becoming better at English, becoming better at communicating. It's a skill, just like that. And as you can imagine, in order to really become good at it, you need time. Every part of your life that you've developed, you've had to have time to allocate to it to get better and eventually become exceptional at it. So the first step is to go and get some. And I think there are 2 really good books to help kind of direct you in this regard and have you start thinking differently about how you're using your time, more specifically, how you are not prioritizing health and how you're going to in the near future. The first book is Who Not How. And the second book is How to Buy Back Your Time by an author named Dan Martell. And it's essentially a very tight framework and practical approach to managing an executive assistant to free up, I would say probably 3 hours a day. What would you do with 3 hours a day? Don't tell me you put more of it into your work. Tell me you'll apply it to your health. You don't actually need 3 hours a day to do it, but you do need some time. And so every week, you're going to have to put some level of effort into weight training. That means you're going to have to go to the gym on average all year round 3 times a week. This is from 14 years of experience. That means that when you're in town and you're not traveling, you can do it 4 times a week or 5 times a week. Maybe if you're doing it right, you won't be able to do it much past 4. But when you're here, local, at home, not traveling, you got to go 4 times a week because when you're gone, you may not do it at all. The second thing you've got to do on a weekly basis is cardiac output training, which is specifically medium intensity, steady state cardio, which means you bring your heart rate up to 80% of your max heart rate, and you try to keep it there as stable as you can for an extended period of time. You can start out with 30 minutes a couple times a week, but eventually you're going to want to get up to 45 to 60 minutes 2 to 3 times a week. And the purpose of that, unlike weight training, which is specifically targeted to changing your body composition, cardiac output, cardio is targeted to your cardiovascular system. You can measure the effectiveness thereof. Unlike weight training with a DEXA scan, cardiac output training you can measure by looking at your resting heart rate. It should slowly come down over the months as you start to employ this tactic. It's a critical one and one that is, I would say, foundational. It's foundational to everything else that you do, meaning you can do all other things more if you have an efficient cardiovascular system. You can weight train more, you can work harder, you can think more clearly, your orthopedic health will be more exceptional, or you'll rebound from injuries faster because you'll have more blood flow. Everything works better with a more efficient cardiovascular system. Next, you have to do some form of mobility training. Oh man, if I only did this when I was in my 20s, when I was able to still, maybe teens, when I was still able to move really well naturally. Over the years, from sitting still on a plane, in a car, behind a desk, not really moving much. Forward head carriage, shoulders rounded. I mean, it just creates a multitude of problems ranging from ankle problems, knee problems, hip problems, low back issues, thoracic spine, right up here in my neck, upper traps become overdeveloped. It's just a freaking mess. And you have to unwind that. And you're probably in exactly the same state. So as a result, you'll have to dedicate, I would say, at least 2 days a week to mobility training. That means you'll have 3 to 4 days of weight training, 2 days of mobility training, 3 days of cardiac output training. So there's going to be some days where you're not doing weight training, but you're doing mobility and cardiac output training on the same days. Mobility training should be intense enough. It should be with a good enough practitioner, whether it's a chiropractor or a physical therapist, that it's so taxing you can't really have a good weight training workout right after. You can certainly hop on an Airdyne bike and slug it out for 45 minutes at a moderate pace. It just doesn't take that much effort. But if you want to get a lot out of weight training, you can't do it after a mobility training unless your mobility training just is checking a box and you're really not making headway. Now, this is one that's just so basic and so boring. And most people, especially CEOs who we primarily cater to, see this as a bit of a mountain to climb. And they tend to cram it in at the end of the day, walking their dog, walking with their family, which is fine. Not the cramming part, but getting it done by the end of the day is fine. But it doesn't need to be that difficult. What you have to do is take the time that you're spending working in an ordinary workday and turn it into manual labor. Like you are actually moving for at least a few hours a day, not the 10-hour workday you're typically working or the 12 or the 8, but just 3 hours. And that means that if you have an hour-long interview, this is what I do. I mic us both up, I record it to my iPhone, and I upload the transcript to my Fireflies account. And that thing organizes it, categorizes it, creates action items, and makes it really effective for the rest of my team to take action on it, or at least become updated on what my conversations were like. And I don't have to sit there and take notes. Interestingly, I think it makes me a better listener because I'm not thinking about the notes I'm taking while someone's speaking to me, missing that new information that they're giving me. So it's turned out to be sort of a double upgrade. I am moving, so I get the health-related benefit, and I'm better at my job as a result of not being focused on taking notes. You also can conduct meetings like that. If you have a meeting with the direct report or anybody, go for a walk. If you have a virtual meeting, a Zoom meeting, a Teams meeting, like I have all the time, I go for a walk. The only challenge with those virtual meetings is you have to be in sort of a Wi-Fi bubble. And so no matter where I'm at throughout Southern California, I make sure I know exactly what the edges of that Wi-Fi bubble are, and I don't step foot on the other side of that little bubble. I stay within it, and I have good connectivity, and I can move the whole time. I think it kind of bugs other people a little bit, but I have to prioritize my health, and really so do you, to be good at your job. Here's another difficult one. You cannot delegate this out. You have to sleep. You have to sleep well. And so the best way to start is to begin measuring it. I use an Oura ring. I've used a Whoop in the past. I had this thing. It was the original version of an Oura ring and a Whoop that actually slid between your mattress and box spring. Even before that, it was a heart rate monitor that a guy named Joel Jameson created with an app. Those were the really, really early HRV days. And it's important to measure those things over long periods of time to see what's happening. HRV is a critical measure, which is a measure of effectively the amount of, or quantification of the amount of time you're spending in a parasympathetic state, which is the rest and digest state. It means that if it's low, you're hardly ever chill, which is a problem from a health and longevity standpoint. If it's high, you're spending a large amount of time in a parasympathetic state, which means you are chill and likely to live longer because you've got a lid on your stress, which eventually will cause you health problems, chronic health problems. So sleeping is critical. By measuring it, specifically your total sleep, sleep efficiency, deep sleep, and REM sleep, you'll get a sense of how you're doing at the beginning. Also, you'll be able to get a sense of how restless your sleep is. And as a lot of us get older, we start to develop sleep apnea related problems, and that can throw a major curveball into your health as well. So understanding where you are today is important, and then developing good sleep hygiene comes thereafter. And that's when you start to measure against. So get blackout shades and make your room perfectly dark. Take the TVs and other electronics out of your bedroom. See what happens. Add white noise if you have a noisy place, or maybe a dog or teenagers like I have that are sneaking around in the middle of the night, waking the dog up who barks. You can also drop your temperature down to 65 degrees, at least in your room, maybe the entire house, to make sure it's a nice, cool, optimally organized environment for sleep. You should also stop using electronic devices a couple hours before bed. And if you can't do that, get those weird ugly blue blocking glasses like I have. They make a version for the daytime. It's kind of yellowish, and they make like an autumn color for the evening and into the night, which is what I do. Sometimes I just can't stop right up until the point when I start my final stages of my sleep hygiene, which is writing in a grateful journal. And this doesn't take a lot of time to do it really, really well and have it be effective. It'll take about 10 minutes because you want to be highly detailed and very, very specific on whatever it is that you're focused on from a gratitude standpoint in that moment in time. And the result will be an enhanced sense of gratitude. And from a biochemistry standpoint, your cortisol levels are dropping. You're going to be able to start the beginning stages of not thinking about all the work that you have. And you'll go into a nice deep slumber in a state of peace, hopefully. Anyway, that's the idea. There are also lots of supplements and even pharmaceuticals that you can take to enhance sleep. And I'm not talking about the stuff that you get addicted to. I, for example, take high doses of progesterone 3 or 4 days a week. Progesterone is converted to GABA in the liver, and it's like your body's natural sedative. And I'm telling you, that stuff is powerful. So you can talk to your doctor about that. It's a really, really unusual treatment method, and it's a little bit expensive, but I don't know about you. I mean, good quality sleep is nearly priceless for higher quality of life. Food. This is one of the biggest problems. Food is actually the easiest thing, in my opinion, to deal with as a CEO. Hopefully, you're successful enough to have the means to either use a meal prep service, which can cover Monday through Fridays, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Limit your dining out to as much as you possibly can, because I'm telling you, those seed oils are killing you. I mean, we see so many theoretically healthy young CEOs. We run labs on them and they look messy, and we send them out to get a coronary computed tomography angiogram. I can't believe I actually remembered that. And they get a 3D AI model of their heart, and they have problems with things like soft plaque. So you got to really take a hard look at what's going on in your cardiovascular health, because dining out will be a curveball. It's likely a problem already for you. Back to nutrition for just a minute. The ultimate is to have a chef. So you get a lot of variety. You tell him or her exactly what you need. You get a nutritionist that will work with your chef to make sure that macros and a micronutrient plan are provided, so you're eating exactly what you need, and you don't have to think about it. You don't have to put any time into it. So it's one thing that's kind of like off your plate. Alcohol. You got to stop drinking. I mean, there is no place in your life for alcohol. How much, you're wondering? I mean, you can probably have a few drinks every couple of weeks and have it have no impact whatsoever after you become healthy. Not right now, because you probably are not in a state of peak health right now. But once you're there, you can do things more regularly, and it really doesn't have any impact. After so much time focusing on my health and getting to a state of peak health, or almost, I'm really truthfully not quite fully there, I stopped drinking, and I've not had a drink for so long. It's just not that attractive to me anymore. So I probably drink at a party, socialize heavy, you know what I'm saying? Maybe 2 or 3 times a year, and it has zero impact on my health. But that's because I'm so metabolically efficient at this stage. So you have to find other ways of socializing without alcohol. And for many people that are in our ecosystem, it's a challenge because they are successful attorneys, CEOs with big clients. They've spent years taking them out and socializing and golfing and partying with them and drinking and building relationships that way. And they're afraid, which is totally understandable, if you take that element out, they're not going to be, they're not going to be funny or something, or they're not going to be the same people, or they don't like them as much. But invariably, our experience is that after you go out and try it for like a week, you realize that nobody really cares, that they actually like who you are, and you're fine. And you can just walk around with sparkling water and ice and a lime, and people are thinking you're drinking a gin and tonic, and nobody's going to ask. You'll be fine. And like most other parts of your life, measure whatever you can and find experts for improvement. Like all other parts of your life, all of your work, like you're not going to hire a marketing department, create a bunch of marketing or ad campaigns and other marketing endeavors and not measure the hell out of every little detail and change constantly all the time. Your health has got to be the same way. You have to think about your health in the same way. So there's all these available metrics. And I'm not just talking about the stuff that you wear. I'm talking about labs and DEXA scans and even non-quantifiable stuff like an orthopedic assessment, having someone else objectively take a look at how you move and see where your problems are from an arm's length perspective. So you've got to start looking at your health from a holistic perspective. You want to be all the way out here on the outside of this wheel, which means that everything is fully pumping from your mental well-being to your body composition, cardiovascular health, strength, which is a big indicator of longevity, hormones, which is a big indicator of whether or not your life sucks right now or if it's great, sleep recovery and stress, which affects everything, detoxification. Actually, all of these affect everything. The nutrients that you have on board, your orthopedic health, you want them all pushed outward. And when you start doing that with a small handful of what I would say non-invasive interventions, specifically lifestyle, exercise, nutrition, and sleep recovery and stress management, so the lens approach, those will collectively drastically improve this, with the exception of, in some cases, depending on your age and the horrific things you've put your body through, you may need some sort of hormone replacement therapy. That all depends on the individual. But everything else, like if you improve your lifestyle, which would be meditation, and that would go into the mental well-being category, it's going to benefit your orthopedic health, your nutrients by making better food choices, your gut health, because there's the gut-brain axis, meaning that if you feel stress up here, emotional stress, your gut health is going to be negatively impaired. Your detoxification, your sleep recovery and stress, your hormones, your strength, cardiovascular health, and body comp, they are all impacted merely by adding meditation. They're not going to transform you into a superhero, but they will have an impact. And when you start to layer those over the top of the handful of exercise components that I mentioned, with really high quality nutrition, with really high quality sleep, because they all start interacting with each other, you start to expand. And on the outside of that is success, charisma. I think, at least from my perspective, that's where beauty is. And in the middle here is the state of sickness. So you're the furthest you can possibly be from a state of sickness when you're in that state of peak health. The next thing is to utilize a team of experts. You got to get some experts to help navigate the results of all the testing that you're doing. And I know what I'm meant to do. It's not to be a health expert. I guess that's a unique characteristic for me, but that's not how I entered into this business. I entered it as a business person, as a CEO, not as a health expert. But for you, whether you've got a CPA firm or a manufacturing company, you are not there to be a health expert. So when you hire a brand strategist as an expert, or some sort of a consultant to do something in your business, this is the same kind of thing. Find an expert or a team of experts to help you navigate this, just like all the other experts that you hire. So let me describe the team to you and how to interview them. The first team member is a doctor. And you want to find a doctor who knows that the patient's in charge. And that would be you, not someone that's paternalistic and way behind the times in terms of keeping up with new research. You want them to understand what all forms of exercise are and how they actually work. So you don't want the doctor to say, you should lose some weight and start exercising more. What the hell does that mean? You want a doctor to say, I'd like you to start doing cardiac output training because your resting heart rate's too high. Unfortunately, that's a unique doctor. You can find that potentially in a naturopathic medical doctor or a functional medicine doctor in other parts of the country, but you have to have a doctor that's got some grasp of what exercise is all about so that they can give you some good general guidance. You also need a physical therapist or a chiropractor who actually fixes problems. And I'm not talking about just taking you from your shoulder surgery to where you can actually now move your arm up like this, but it still hurts to put it over your head. But someone that actually fixes problems and can take you to a state of really optimization when it comes to orthopedic health. You also need to have a nutritionist who understands how food and exercise, they kind of go together. And so if you are running 2 days a week for 45 minutes and you're walking 10,000 steps a day, your nutrition plan, specifically your macronutrient plan, should support all that work because it's a lot of work. And so you should have massive amounts of carbohydrates. Oh, yeah, carbohydrates. Yeah, they're really helpful. They're a great energy source, and they will help you change your body composition faster than you can imagine. But they'll understand that. And many nutritionists have no idea because they've only studied nutrition theories, and they don't know that it has to actually work with the rest of the parts of your body, that there's no separating them. You also have to have a trainer who understands stress and what to do about it, how to react, and injuries, and isn't just a good salesperson, which is frankly how most successful trainers are. That's why they're successful, because they're able to build relationships quickly and convince you to buy another 10-pack. You want someone who can create training programs also that evolve as you do. One of the most painful things for me to hear and see is for a personal trainer to greet you as you walk into the gym and grab their legal pad and say, hey, we've been doing this workout for a while. How about we just change it up a little bit? And he starts making notes and changes things on the fly. I don't know about you, but I want someone to sit down and think and ask me some questions maybe, like, how's your left wrist? How is your sleep? How do you feel emotionally? Are you adherent to your nutrition plan? You want to know all of these things as a trainer to write the right kind of training program. How are your injuries? Ideally, they're speaking with your chiropractor or your physical therapist as well, although that's a HIPAA compliance issue. But you want someone that understands these things as a trainer. It's not that common, actually. Here's a red flag. That trainer has no oversight on quality, which means they're just operating as a unique individual in a place like, let's say, 24 Hour Fitness or Lifetime Fitness. They're just operating as an individual. They're selling packages of training sessions to you, writing the training programs, throwing out some nutrition advice here and there, and then taking you through the training programs. You walk into gyms like that, and invariably you see the same people that look older and more beat up as years go by or don't have any change at all. And the idea is to get change, but they can't actually do it because it's kind of an incomplete solution, because you need things like food and hormones and lifestyle and the rest of it to really move the needle in the gym. Exercise is critical, but if they don't have oversight, you have no one taking a look at whether or not what they're doing is actually helpful to you and whether or not it's potentially hurtful to you. I don't know about you, but in my other experiences in business, there were always checks and balances. And in a gym, generally, there isn't any. You should get a gym that has personal trainers with checks and balances. In my opinion, you also need a health coach. The health coach is kind of like the general contractor of your house project or building your new house. You don't want to be the general contractor and deal with all the other contractors. You want to have some kind of sense of who the heck the painter is maybe, or what the kitchen contractor is all about, and whether or not they're professional and they're doing a good job. Yeah, but the health coach kind of brings it all together for you. They provide the 30,000 foot view of you. Like, overall, you seem like you're running out of gas. You seem kind of edgy. I know you're training really hard. You're not eating enough. You're in a caloric deficit. Your thyroid's starting to downregulate. Your sex hormones are probably coming down too. You probably should go in and get another set of sex hormone labs done and see what's really happening. That's what a health coach should be doing for you. And last but not least, they should all be speaking to each other. And this part's not going to be the easiest thing in the world, but when I have a group of outside vendors, let's say in marketing, and they all play critical roles, I want them to know what the other ones are doing. I want them to build relationships and speak to each other. I want to listen to them argue about what we should be doing next. I want different opinions, sweaty armpit conversations, and through that conflict, there comes a tremendous amount of professional development, and I benefit from that. It's the same thing with your body and your health team. Let's talk about some ancillary tools that can help a great deal that are pretty efficient. I really like IV therapy. If you're in a caloric deficit and you're trying to lose some weight, having the right micronutrients on board via an IV is very, very helpful. It'll help you weather the impact of just things like fatigue and brain fog. So that's one tool. I love an infrared sauna. They're really easy to install in your house or houses. Put them everywhere so you have easy access to them. Make sure that they're in places you stay when you travel for business. Make sure they're in your second homes and your third homes. Make sure they're everywhere. The reason it's so important is because as you become healthier, you'll start to lose fat. And in your fat cells resides a lot of toxins. And as you convert that fat to energy and your body starts to use it, those toxins can be released in your body. And I've had friends that have lost fat so quickly that they end up with nausea and severe headaches. And that's because they're sick. They were a bag full of garbage, and now that garbage is circulating in their body and they're suffering the consequences of it. By sweating like you do in a sauna, it will help you with that detoxification process. There's also a long-term cardiovascular benefit to it. As you vasodilate, so your blood vessels become enlarged as you try to cool down, you can actually see it. I mean, I look like a freak when I'm in the sauna. You can see the transformation. That enables your body to retain some of its cardiovascular elasticity as you get older. So it's the opposite of sclerosis. And if you're my age, I'm 56 right now when I'm recording this, you likely have some of that going on. There's also a genetic component, but I think you can reverse all of that. Further, a cold plunge is also very helpful. If you're under a lot of stress and sometimes things look bleak and you really have to kind of grind through a tough time, a cold plunge will give you 4 or 5 hours of like a rosier outlook on life. And that's helpful in times of great stress when your default position is to be hypercritical of yourself and everyone around you. It will help you continue to be a good leader through times like that. And so for that, I really like a cold plunge. I also like it because it's super efficient. I go in for 3 minutes a day. And it's also very helpful from a body composition standpoint. It doesn't replace the lifestyle, exercise, nutrition, and sleep recovery and stress tactics that you're employing, but it can be additive. When you hop into a cold plunge, the cold water actually ramps up the production of your body's brown fat cells. And your brown fat cells are fat cells that reside right next to your white fat cells. And the interesting thing about those brown fat cells is they're brown because there's mitochondria inside of them. So it means they've got, I think iron is what makes them that color, but they've got all the micronutrients that your mitochondria has in it because they're metabolically active. And as soon as you wake them up, they activate to start heating up your body. And they need energy for that. And what do? They grab a hold of the triglycerides in the neighboring white fat cells. They eat them up and they turn it into energy, turn it into heat. As you use it on a regular basis, your body creates more brown fat cells, so it becomes better at that entire process. And so you literally have your brown fat cells eating your white fat cells, and you can lose some body fat in that process. I'll continue to share ideas that'll help teach you the skill of health and help you get the most out of your body, because I know you've driven it into the ground.